What's considered normal in Europe, but horrific in America? Underage drinking seems more of a crime in the US. In most cases, if a kid is caught with alcohol in the UK, it's just confiscated and poured away. Strictly speaking, the age you can drink alcohol is really low as well. So long as you're home with a parent, I think it's like 5, 6. When you're in a restaurant, you're also allowed low percentage alcohol like cider with a meal, so long as you're with an adult. As a Czech person, my American wife was blown away that we let kids in pubs or bars. To be honest, I do like being an adult-only spaces in American bars. They're allowed in every pub and bar. In the US, honestly, probably has a lot more to do with, since our drinking age is so high, we want to keep teens from stealing people's unfinished drinks. But the bonus of being able to smoke on a bar patio without gassing some kids. I never smoke near children, is a nice benefit. Doesn't apply to every European country, but prison sentences are a lot shorter. Life in prison without parole is extremely rare, and many countries do not have such sentences. For example, the maximum sentence here in Finland is called life in prison, but the average time spent in prison before release is 13-14 years for them. Some countries in Europe have church taxes. A state collects money through the taxation system and hands a slice of it over to the national church or state paid clergy. Few days ago in our Ask Europe, someone told a story how their American relatives got so bent out of shape over naked children running around the beach. On every beach in Bulgaria I've been, naked children is the norm. Women sunbathing in Monarchini is considered absolutely normal, while naked men are okay only in the nude sections of the beaches. And every beach has a nude section. I was in Croatia back in July, and a tour guide talked about different tourists' attitudes toward nudity. He said Americans are never naked or topless on the beach. Some French and Italians might occasionally go topless. Croatians are similar to the French and Italians. But Germans, the Croatians put signs up on beaches where nudity isn't allowed, and the signs are written only in German. He said the German tourists would be naked as soon as they could see the water otherwise. Where do I start? German here, living in the US. How about TV tags? I bet Americans would go bonkers over it, lol. I mean, so do Germans. But wait for it. It's a classic. What can you do? I was studying abroad in Norway when someone came to my door to ask how many TVs I had. I thought it was a student asking for a research project or something. But when they didn't accept, when I said 0, I got really confused. I just had a laptop I watched all my TV on. They thought that meant I had a TV and tried to tell me that any TV would be something like 60 or so, and how would I be paying? I don't know, can't remember. It's been a long time. I of course was 100% convinced I was being shaken down by a con artist or something. It rose to the level that they came into my apartment without my permission and looked around for a TV and was acting like they didn't believe I didn't have one. Eventually they just went away. It was a bizarre encounter that likely wasn't helped by the fact my Norwegian did not expand much past where is the bathroom and how are you at that point. Being completely naked in a sauna, mixed men and women. This is also not normal in the UK, but perfectly normal in some European countries on the continent. Being from the UK, I was surprised the first time I went into a hotel spa abroad and literally all the men and women in there were completely at ease with being naked. No attempt whatsoever to cover genitals when in Rome. I don't know if this would horrify Americans, as I've never heard it discussed, but where I live in Europe, Luxembourg, voting is mandatory and you can get fined for not voting in an election. You can still spoil your ballot, so you don't have to decide between lesser evils if you don't want to, but you have to make the effort to go to the polling station or submit a postal vote. It guarantees a high voter turnout and by extension more representative elections, coupled with a proportional voting system, so we are not locked into a two-party mess like the UK or the US. Not that it's without its issues, of course, but I think it's an improvement. Kids being naked at water play areas. When I was about 10, I took my American friend to a play park that had a water feature to play in. We were making our way to the water play section when a girl, I'd say about 2, was walking naked towards us. My American friend was mortified. and it took a lot of explaining that this was normal. At least in Germany, nudity. No one cares if you're naked. No one thinks you're a sex offender. No one thinks it's even sexual to be naked unless you're actively having sex. And no one makes it weird. You can be naked in public parks to soak up sun. On beaches. Swim naked in lakes. Saunas are all naked. Mixed sex areas and spas and saunas are naked with no issues, and in general, it's just not an issue. Oh man. Europe has so many different countries. Something that is completely normal where I live could be frowned upon as soon as I cross the next border. But in general we tip for good service. Not because we have to. A rude waitress won't get tipped by me. Also we usually remove our shoes before we enter a home. And yep, free healthcare. Mailman doesn't leave packages unattended on your porch. He either gives you it on the doorstep or you go get it at the post office. Much less infuriating than getting it stolen or thrown across your yard by a mailman. I praise you mailmen leaving packages in front of the door and it not getting stolen even in cities. Where I'm from, mailman will just give the package to a neighbor if you are not home. If you live in an apartment, someone will let the postman in and he will drop the parcel in the hallway somewhere for you to stumble over it. If you want a parcel to be delivered securely, you can send it with the demand of a signature. Then the postman will only hand it over to you directly or give you a notice that a parcel is waiting at the post office. But that only happens for expensive goods or sensitive documents like contracts. I don't know about Europe, but here in the Netherlands we have a TV program named Spuiten en Slikken, which translates to squirt inject, same word for both and swallow. It's about sex and drugs and they educate younger people about literally everything. The people who present the program will try drugs and talk about how that makes them feel. They also talk very open about sex and are not shy to show it. It's a really interesting program to be honest, and because they show how to do stuff safely instead of saying don't do drugs and don't have sex, it educates people much better. But yeah, I cannot see Spuiten en Slikken in America, haha. The amount of people who still smoke, especially smoking in restaurants. Nothing like sitting in a beautiful cafe and having someone at the table next to you light up just as your food arrives. Also putting tobacco in weed. Nudity. Not so much since the coof came around. But people have no issues being naked here. One of my neighbors loves to go topless when it gets super hot out. It would be a lot better if she wasn't 95. Edit yes. Coof is referring to the SARS-CoV-2 that is currently making the entire world crazy. It is a term for everyone. You sit and be happy. Taking the bus. There is so much stigma around public transport in the US, especially buses. And in Europe it's just a totally normal way to get around, because nobody wants to deal with driving and parking in a big city. Also from an employer's perspective, 25+ vacation days minimum for all employees, and unlimited sick days. The absolute horror. I'm in the US and I've used my fair share of buses to get around. In fact, my city made buses free for everyone. You just get in and sit down. No questions asked. The buses here are terribly inefficient. It takes literally 45 minutes to an hour to get 3 miles down the road. The way the routes are split up, something that would be a 30-minute walk would actually require you to ride to the transit for 45 minutes and then wait 15 minutes for your next bus, and then it would be another 15-minute ride. So just getting to a grocery store and back again would be an ordeal that takes up half of your day. This is why a lot of hiring managers have flat out told me that they won't hire me if I have to take a bus. It's not considered a reliable form of transportation at all. This is pretty much it in a nutshell. My first experience with a bus was waiting about 45 minutes to travel maybe a mile to a mile and a half, then getting off, waiting 45 minutes to go another mile and a half, then walking like a half mile home. Granted, I don't really live in a huge city or anything, it's a town of about 100,000. But getting between any two random points in a city via bus tends to be less efficient than walking. The only exception I've really noticed is that, in my town at least, the routes between campus and major apartment complexes are pretty good. So I can at least take the bus to class. But even then I sometimes work also on campus. And if I have to work odd hours of the night, I'll usually have to either walk like 4 miles or take an Uber to get to and from work. If your commute happens to be a longer route going between two central communication hubs, it can be okay, but otherwise bus service here is ass in my experience. Having an electric kettle. Many people I know have electric kettles. Granted, they tend to be immigrants, but still, it's not hard to find them, and they cost like $20 on Amazon. My wife is a coffee drinker, but I'm a tea guy, so I use the kettle a lot. We also use it to preheat water for any cooking, since it's usually faster than the stove. Most Americans are coffee drinkers. That's probably why they don't bother getting a kettle. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.